Snow and ice can make Michigan a winter wonderland, but our weather can also be dangerous. Tonight, the News 10 First Alert Weather Team helps you and your family prepare for winter's worst. Everything you need to know before the snow comes. This is your First Alert Winter Survival Guide, presented by M&M Moving.
And welcome to the First Alert Winter Survival Guide.
Like it or not, winter's almost here. From snow to ice to bitter cold, we see it all in mid-Michigan.
Yeah, and over the next half hour, we will be talking everything winter, from road conditions to school closings.
We will also look at how climate change could be changing our winters in Michigan. And winter and memorable storms seem to go together in Michigan. For Lansing and the surrounding suburbs, the late December ice storm of 2013 is one that we will never forget. More than 38,000 customers were left in the dark, with some power outages lasting as long as 11 days after the storm. For many, the Christmas holiday was spent with friends and family or at a hotel due to the outage. The historic ice storm brought about many changes in how the Lansing Board of Water and Light keeps its power lines clear of trees and how it responds to a crisis like an ice storm.
It is the goal of all electric utilities to avoid power outages, but our harsh winter conditions present a challenge for the utilities. A power outage is never good, no matter the season, but they are especially bad in the winter. Did you know that a half an inch of ice on the power line from the pole to your house could weigh up to 500 pounds? That's the weight of 2 home refrigerators. The added weight of the ice on power lines, teamed up with gusty winds and falling tree limbs, cause many outages. The preparation to prevent power outages is a year-round task at Consumers Energy.
We prepare all year long for weather events, particularly for these winter storms that impact Michigan. So this year, we've inspected over 13,000 miles of the electric grid. We have cleared over 5,500 miles of trees away from the electric grid. And we're on track this year to clear over 7,000 miles.
In case you were wondering, yes, the utility companies are monitoring the weather forecast just like you in the winter. A storm forecast puts them into action.
It is all hands on deck inside Consumers Energy. We are ramping up our office staffing. We're moving equipment around the state so we can really narrow in on where is that icing event going to occur.
If you find yourself without power, remember, do not run a generator in your garage. It needs to be outside, and stay away from down power lines.
First Alert Weather is part of our commitment to you at home to give you the first alert to changing or dangerous weather days before it happens. Part of that includes First Alert Weather Days. Meteorologist Colton Sikoracki shows us what goes into forecasting these days.
Every day, the First Alert Weather Team is committed to creating an accurate weather forecast. We're looking for any weather that might impact your day. That can be weather that is happening tomorrow or even a week from now. It's part of a 3-part process of First Alert forecasting. It starts 5 to 7 days out. This is when we are tracking the longer-term weather patterns, looking for any sign that impactful weather might be heading our way. Then 3 to 5 days out, we identify storms that could cause some disruptions. We watch model data closely and work to pinpoint the exact track and time of future storms. And once we are within 3 days of the storm, we will alert you to the specific impacts. This is when First Alert Weather Days are declared, and we bring you live team coverage of the forecast. You'll notice changes in our newscast that show more urgency and more information to help you prepare for what's coming. And finally, on a declared First Alert Weather Day, you'll see the red banner on your screens. Weather will be the top story in all of our newscasts, and our website and streaming channel will include in-depth coverage of our forecast.
It's all part of our commitment to you to always give you that first alert, and the best way to stay connected when you're on the go is to download the First Alert Weather app. Radar, winter weather alerts, and video forecasts are just a few taps away on your smartphone or tablet with the News 10 First Alert Weather app. Search WILX Weather on Google Play or the Apple App Store. It's free.
Still ahead on News 10's Winter Survival Guide, the Michigan Department of Transportation is already getting ready for what will be a busy winter season. See what road crews are doing to prepare for another Michigan winter. Plus, we'll tell you how to stay safe while driving on snow-covered roads this winter. Stay with us.
Did you know that Lansing once saw a winter season of nearly 100 inches of snow? That happened back in 1881. That year we saw 97.2 inches of snow, and remember, on average Lansing sees just under 47, so that was more than double our seasonal average.
Nobody would argue the fact that Michigan receives a lot of snow in the winter, but our dedicated crews do a great job trying to keep our roads and highways drivable in harsh conditions. Who plows your road? Well, it depends. Plowing is a shared task between cities, counties, and the Michigan Department of Transportation. My recent visit was to the MDOT Williamston Garage, where preparations for winter weather were underway. 16 plows were ready to go, and the storage area was ready for its salt delivery. Once the snow starts flying, it is a daily grind to keep highways safe for travelers. When a big storm is expected, it's all hands on deck.
At some point, we're going to have all 100% of the workforce here ready to work, and they're going to do two 12-hour shifts to cover all the ground that's necessary.
The process is more involved than just driving around plowing and spreading salt. It requires constant monitoring of current weather and road conditions.
The salt becomes less effective when it goes below 10 degrees because what happens is you clear away the ice, but then it refreezes. Right. We have some great scientists working for us, some great engineers, and we do cutting-edge technology to make sure that you have a safe drive to home, work, school, wherever you're going.
The big thing you can do to help the plow drivers is give them plenty of room to do their job. In the large trucks, seeing smaller vehicles on the roads is sometimes a challenge. You can also monitor the location of the MDOT plows on the mDrive map.
And driving in the winter in Michigan can be tough sometimes, and there are many useful tips to keep in mind when you are on the road. First Alert meteorologist Andy Provenzano tells us what you need to know.
Nowadays, there's many types of cars on the highway. You have front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, even electric cars. But starting at the top of being the safest is the same as it's always been. Michigan State Police will tell us the best thing you can do is slow down. Now, of course, you want to check your tires, make sure you have adequate tread and that the manufacturing spec of the tire pressure is there. Remove the ice off the windows. We all need to do that. A lot of times you see cars with maybe not the back window cleaned off. And if you do begin to skid, you want to avoid accelerating and braking too fast and kind of slide with that skid. But it's more than that as well. In fact, most people will say if you really want to avoid driving in the winter weather and accidents is just stay off the roads if possible to avoid the traveling and let the road crews do their thing. And accidents are much more likely to happen because your stopping distance and reaction time becomes so incredibly small during the winter season it's hard to react. Got to get your car prepared too, meteorologist Justin Bradford. He's got details on that.
We'll start your vehicle checklist with the exterior of the vehicle, beginning with the tires. Now you want to make sure that these have got some pretty solid tread because that will allow for a shorter stopping distance, especially on a snowy or icy surface. You also want to make sure that you know what pressure you need to have your tires inflated to, as that will allow you to have a shorter stopping distance. And you can typically find that, if not in your driver's manual, on the inside of your driver's side door. You can keep snow and ice off of your vehicle with a brush or scraper, and it's also good to have some kitty litter. Some non-clumping kitty litter like I have here will help give you some extra traction if you do happen to get stuck. You can also keep your doors from freezing shut with a simple, safe silicone spray. All you have to do is make sure your door frame is dry, and then using a microfiber cloth or a dry paper towel, spray the edge, and then just wipe that in for a little bit and let it dry for a few minutes, and that's it. It is smart to keep a half tank of gas or more to prevent condensation inside the gas lines or tank, which can freeze during extreme temperatures. Ralph Shaheen says there's a few other things you can do as well.
Check your coolant. You know, we recommend coolant should be flushed every 150,000 miles. So if you have a fairly new car, don't really worry about it. It should be up to snuff. But if you have an older car, make sure your coolant is up to snuff as well. Windshield washer fluid, that's good for helping de-ice your windshield. A blanket, in case you do get stranded, would be a big thing. Other than that, the battery, I think, is the biggest.
When you finally do start your vehicle, your defroster will get rid of any snow or ice that has gathered on the windshield. And it's also a good idea while you're here to try out your headlights. Make sure none of them are out. Having a family member or friend stand outside the vehicle will help you do this easily. It's always good inside the car to have jumper cables in case you or someone you know needs a start, and having a pair of gloves and a blanket to keep you warm, in addition to some food or water in case you are in an emergency. And finally, a phone charger, flashlight, and small first aid kit will keep you prepared in the event of any issues.
If you haven't changed your battery in 4 years, change your battery. Don't let it leave you hanging.
And remember, most auto parts stores will test your battery for free so you don't get left out in the cold.
And coming up after the break, we take a look at why our winters are becoming warmer and wetter. And we have tips on how to keep your furry friends safe when it gets too cold to leave your pets outside. You're watching the First Alert Winter Survival Guide here on News 10.
Welcome back. Did you know a foot of fluffy snow can weigh more than 6,000 pounds on your roof? That's like having the weight of 2 cars parked on top of your home. And normal snow can weigh more than 18,000 pounds, while a wet snow can add nearly double that amount of weight to your roof. That's why it's important to not let too much snow accumulate.
Have you ever noticed that if you go outside early after a big snowfall that it seems unusually quiet? Well, it's not your imagination. A blanket of several inches of fresh snow absorbed many of the sound waves, making it seem quieter. Of course, we can't show you sound waves, but we'll use a yellow ball to kind of get the idea of the sound waves. And we drop the yellow ball onto a hard surface like the ground or a roadway. And basically, the sound waves just kind of bounce off the hard surface and they continue to move along. Now, we add some snow, and it's more than just a dusting of snow. You really need several inches of snow that is of a fluffy consistency, not the wet, slushy variety of snow. Now, it's believed that 50 to 90% of the sound waves that come in contact with the fresh, powdery surface are absorbed by the snow. As snow melts and it refreezes, it loses its silencing ability due to compaction and the change in snowflake shapes.
And there is no doubt that our winters in Michigan are changing. Winters are becoming warmer and wetter due to climate change. I took a look at how fast our winters are changing and how it is impacting our community.
I'm 5th generation, so my whole life.
Mike Beck has helped run Uncle John's for nearly 25 years. He's seen the ups and downs when it comes to the weather and how it impacts his crops. But one year stands out like no other, and that was 2012.
That nice warm March led to too much growth, and that put flowers out in April, and April nights are still freezing, and that killed the entire crop.
Beck is talking about an extraordinarily early and extreme warm-up that led to one of the worst apple crops in Michigan ever. In March of that year, there were 9 straight days with highs in the 70s and 80s, temperatures that were nearly 25 degrees above average. That led to the warmest March on record in the Lansing area and led to an early start to spring as trees began to bloom. But just days after the record heat, frost and freeze conditions returned, and that triggered a disaster, killing many of the buds. Jeff Andreessen is the official state climatologist and works at Michigan State University. He says climate change could be creating events like these.
There are some areas in our region where we do see maybe an increasing tendency for that problem, for that early warm up followed by freezing temperatures. But there also are some places in Michigan where we don't see that.
Andreessen says what is clear, our climate is changing in Michigan. He says over the years, Michigan is becoming warmer and wetter, receiving 10 to 15% more precipitation each year and an average temperature that has climbed a few degrees. And in the wintertime, data from Climate Central shows that Lansing's average winter temperature has risen 4 degrees since 1970.
We are still see severe winters, but they're just less frequent and generally less severe than they were in the past. We're also seeing on the other side of the distribution, we are seeing some mild winters that we didn't experience 50 years ago.
Which can impact things like ski resorts, the ice fishing sport, and of course, the farm industry. At Uncle John's, Beck says the changing weather and climate is part of the lifestyle that farmers must adapt to.
You just take the good with the bad, but and hopefully they all even out in the end.
Andreessen tells me that there have been some leveling off with how fast Michigan is warming. Still, though, Lansing has seen 5 of the top 10 warmest winters on record since 2000.
And it's not just people that are affected by the switch to the winter season. Animals are also impacted by the arrival of the cold. And even more susceptible than critters in the wild that have adapted to snowy and chilly weather are our beloved household pets. Our pets' cold tolerance can vary based on a number of factors, including their coat, body fat, activity level, and overall health. But Lexi Rittenberg from Capital Area Humane Society tells me there are some things humans do to combat the winter elements that negatively impact our furry friends.
people typically use antifreeze, and that can be really toxic to animals. So making sure that they're not around anywhere that they can access those chemicals, which can be toxic or fatal if ingested. And making sure if there's any kind of salt on the ground that you're wiping their paws when they come inside so that they're not licking that off.
Rittenberg also adds that it's harder for animals to keep track of known scents if they are outdoors in the cold and snow, so it's a good idea to keep a close eye on them if they do go outside.
Coming up, I'll have my winter weather outlook when the First Alert Weather Survival Guide continues.
For students, a snow day is almost like winning the lottery. For those of us of a certain age, we would listen to our hometown radio station and wait for the good news through the static. The next generation could watch for their school district on the bottom of the screen here on TV 10. Now websites, apps, social media, and even a Yeti deliver the information. A Yeti? We'll have more on that in a minute. Who makes the call to cancel school? In most districts, the superintendent decides if conditions warrant closing or delaying the start of school. The decision is a lot more involved than just looking out the window.
Well, I get up at 3:50 and I'm on the road by 4. Okay. And to that end, I am navigating our school district. I generally leave my home, which is relatively close to Holt High School, head west into Dimondale, circle into South Lansing because we actually serve kids from across our learning community, back in through Holt and tuck into Mason and what have you. During that period of time, I'm exchanging notes with area superintendents as well as our transportation.
So there's a network of you talking at 4 in the morning?
Absolutely. Okay.
Now about the Yeti, a character who travels the Holt School District to make the announcement on social media when school closes.
There was a previous superintendent who stayed in session one day when everyone else closed down, and so there was some pressure. And as I was emerging into this role, I needed to, I wanted to engage with the kids. There is an actual Holt Yeti that will run around the district and announce. And the Holt Yeti has sang some songs, Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, Under Pressure, and at the end of the day, it's a fun way to release our snow day announcements.
And no matter how creative announcements get, remember you can always get the latest school closings on News 10, WILX.com, and the First Alert weather app.
Before we look at what winter's going to bring us, snowier, warmer, wetter, we need to know what normals are. Remember, winter records are December, January, and February when it comes to temperatures, but for snowfall, it's from that first coating to the last coating. So it could be late fall into springtime that we measure all those numbers. So in most winters for us, you can see are running at about 46 to 50 inches. That would be normal. And we don't get it all at once, but it usually adds up by April to be those numbers. So what's our winter look like? Well, we look at a couple of different things, and most of it is tying in ocean temperatures. A catchphrase from decades ago was El Nino. El Nino takes place late in the year when you get the warming of the Pacific Ocean, and that's named El Nino the child, the Christ child. That happens almost every year to some degree. If it's really well pronounced, what ends up happening is the trade winds shut off, so you start to bring that warm weather back in. It means a pretty wet winter forecast for the southern part of the country and pretty warm for us. Now the other thing is the La Nina, which we're about into, very light La Nina year, so the warmer temperatures get pushed to the west and it allows colder ocean temperatures to well up. And that also allows for a more stormy pattern. You get a more pronounced winter pattern across our country. And for us, that could mean combining up low pressures and cold air from time to time, so it becomes a wetter and a colder winter. And that's what the Weather Service says, below normal temperatures for our region and above normal precipitation for us as well. I think our winter is going to have periods of very cold and snowy conditions and some breaks from time to time, but I think when it's all said and done, we're above normal with the snowfall.
Well, during the last half hour, we showed you how energy and road crews get ready for the winter season.
We shared tips of how to drive in the snow and how to get your car ready for winter.
And we talked about how climate change is impacting our winters and how to keep our furry friends protected.
And it's all part of our commitment to you at home and know that your First Alert weather team will be here tracking every storm heading our way. Thanks for watching and good night.